All right, guys. Today we're working on a 2016 Toyota Tacoma. It is two-wheel drive. It's a buddy of mine's son's. Young guys. He's graduated from some trade school. He's a welder. Works a second shift, I believe, TIG welding stainless steel or something like that at a factory not too far from here. Anyway, he wants his truck a little higher and a little wider, so we're going to do just a little budget lift deal, a couple pucks on top of his front struts and some blocks. He also wants me to put these wheel spacers on for him, which I'm not a huge fan of wheel spacers, but this is a budget deal. He's a young guy, like I said, I think he's 20. He's a welder, which is awesome. He's learned a trade, and he's working his ass off and making some money. He's fixing up his ride, so I'm going to help him out. You can probably see my breath as I'm talking. It's about 37 degrees in the shop this morning. It's raining. It's end of January in Georgia. We're in North Georgia. Foothills, basically the Appalachian Mountains. We're not quite in the mountains, but you can see them from here. So it's not South Georgia warm, it's North Georgia cold. And I'm going to kick my little, I've got one little heater going off a propane tank. This metal building shop of mine, it's not insulated. It's got this little thin coating of insulation. It's basically like bubble wrap that was on the ceiling. And this building was built when I moved to this house, and not built the way I would have done it. And we're going to hopefully be able to afford to remodel it one day and dry it in like a house and insulate it properly and heat and cool it maybe. It's freezing in here, and in summer it is brutally hot in here. I mean, I was measuring temperatures of over 100 degrees in here with an infrared temperature gun last summer. It was absolutely insane. I've got all kinds of industrial fans, and I think I've got like 6, and had them all going all day, starting from the morning, and then the afternoon it was like over 100 degrees in here. Sitting at my desk, it's just like brutal, just dumping sweat. Couldn't hardly work in here after 2 o'clock in the afternoon until about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and it was just still stifling hot. And once this place warms up, it's like an oven. And same in the winter. Once it cools down, it's like a freezer. So maybe it'll get insulated one day, I hope. We have a bit of a lighting problem too. I've got to redo all the lights in here, and but we're working with what we have for right now, and that's all I can do. And I'm not complaining, because it's far better than what I grew up working in. I grew up working in a 2-car carport, working on cars. No lifts, hardly any equipment, and we made it happen. And worked on a lot of race cars, and lifted a lot of trucks, Jeeps, and stuff like that. Had a lot of fun. Motorcycles, 4-wheelers, go-karts. Just did whatever, cut grass to make money, and spend it all on stuff that goes fast. Had a lot of fun, and anyway, we're gonna get going on this, but I am gonna kick my heater on, and might not be able to hear very well, so I might just mute through some of it and fast forward through some of it or something. I don't know how I'll edit it, but I'll kick my little turbo heater on, lift this truck up, and we'll get going. '89 regular cab Toyota, had a 7-inch lift, 4-inch suspension, 3-inch body on 35s. Little white truck, I loved it. It was a little 4-cylinder, but you couldn't hurt that truck. I mean, we would, you know, being dumb kids, would put it first, start holding the floor and start popping the clutch, and start lifting the front tires off the ground, ride wheelies and stuff with it. I mean, and it didn't hurt it. We used to take it over towards the mountains on the fire roads to go camping, and I swear we would jump it 3-4 feet in the air, and it would land like a Cadillac, keep going. Never hurt that truck, and had to put a clutch in it once. Drove it for a while, ended up trading it in on a 1990 454 SS Chevrolet. Did a lot of drag racing with that truck, just playing around. It went real fast. It run like 790s and 8 miles. Had a nitrous kit on it. It was lower, kiting the wheels and stuff. It was fun. But back to the Toyotas. I've had I've had 3 Toyotas, 4Runner, 2 trucks. My brother's had 2 trucks. They've just been awesome vehicles. The older ones were bulletproof. I think the newer ones are too. I just haven't worked on a lot of the newer ones. I work on a lot of domestic stuff, but do some Japanese stuff, some European stuff. But great platform for a young guy. You know, we're an old guy, but I mean, it's a good budget truck. They're fun. They fit in tight spots. They get pretty good gas mileage, and they seem to run forever. I like them. All right, the lift's set up. They're easy to ride. Alright, I'm going to do one side at a time, of course. So basically what we got to do is get this strut out. Get this puck in top, and which just forces everything down. And lighting's not all that great in here. Let's see if I can improve that. Boys and girls see better now. Alright. Let's see what we got to do to get this thing out. One, I got to lower it down to my size. I'm going to pop this other wheel off. Oh wait, I got to do it right this second. Alright, we'll take 3 mounting bolts off the top of the strut, one on the bottom. We've got 2 bolts that holds the ball joint bracket up, or I could take the 1 ball joint, but I don't want to bust the ball joint loose, so I don't have to, so we'll just do the 2 bolts. And we'll be able to swing the spindle, lower the control arm, and drop that bad boy out of there. Probably have to take the sway bar end link off. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. 17mm on the sway bar end link, 19mm on the 2 bolts for the bottom of ball joint bracket. Get a ratchet wrench for the top. Fourteen millimeter. Whoa. You know what? Didn't want a wrench. That's bad boy. Tight. Just for those that don't know, don't ever take this top nut off, especially if you've got it out. That spring pressure can cause serious injury or death. You always want to use a spring compressor like I've got mounted over there if you're ever changing the spring or taking the spring off of the strut. I've heard horror stories about that. I had a buddy of mine working in a body shop, and they hired a kid that said he was like a master tech, master suspension guy. It was a body shop, so they needed somebody doing suspension work. For, you know, collisions, mangled suspension, you got to replace that stuff, right? So body guys don't want to do it. They just want to deal with the sheet metal and paint and whatnot. A lot of those guys don't like to fool with suspension and wiring and things like that. So I hired this kid in first day doing a strut job. He's got an impact like this. He's got the strut on the ground. He puts a socket on top of the nut, takes it off all in one quick whop. Wham! It uncoils, broke his rib cage, sent him to the hospital, damn near killed him. Don't ever want to screw around with that kind of stuff. You don't know what you're doing, get a professional. 3 nuts off the top of the strut. We got the 2 bottom bolts off of the ball joint bracket. We've got the end link off. We got the end link off now. You take the bottom strut mount nut off. Bolt through. That bolt's got a little pressure on it, so I'm trying to find out how to get that out of there safely. There we go. Just had to apply a little pressure down on that lower control arm, take a little pressure off that bolt so I can slide it out of the bottom of the strut. Got that spindle was loose. May have to take this lower control arm loose. I don't know yet. I'm gonna try to do it without, so I don't mess with the. I'm gonna try to do it to loose. Try to do this without taking the lower control arm bolts off or loose, so I don't screw with the caster. Adjustment for the alignment. I'm gonna have to adjust the alignment when I'm done. But if I don't have to screw the caster, I don't want to. Sometimes that's a royal pain in the butt to get back right. So. Throw a little PV blaster on the nut, or on the threads down through the spindle where the tie rod end sticks through the spindle. Let that soak for a minute. This is Georgia. This looks like a Georgia truck. So we don't have a whole lot of rust to deal with, which is great. You can tell real quick something's come down from up north in an auction or something, or somebody's migrated down to the warm weather and brought their rusty crap with them. Man, I don't like working on rusty vehicles. I don't see how you mechanics up north do it. I worked with some guys, but an old friend of mine came down from like Maryland and worked with us at some dealerships, and he was telling us stories about melting snow off vehicles and squeegeeing it out while everybody had acetylene torches in each bay at the dealership and be cutting stuff off all the time. And I just don't like that. Not my deal. I'm definitely a southern boy. Like to play in the snow every once in a while. I just take a hammer, I hit the spindle, not the tie rod in, hit the spindle where the hole goes up, and usually it will pop right down. The whole suspension's won't pop down. That's being stubborn. That usually will shock the hole, and then it'll pop down through. But, sometimes I'll thread the bolt back on upside down, the castle nut, and then pop it from the top. You don't want to damage the threads, and you'd be putting tie rod in on it. So that's about the only bit of rust I see on this suspension deal, and it's on that. So I'm going to spray it one more time with PB Blaster. Let it sit for a few minutes and hit it again. So I'm going to turn this off while that sits and soaks just for a minute, and then I will come back to it. Alright. I turn the wheel where I get a better swing on it, it popped. So I did soak it for a few minutes with PB Blaster. I just forgot to turn the camera back on. I gave it a couple good pounds and it came off. Alright, get him out of there. Get him out of there. Bam. I'll just take a rag and lightly wipe off, make sure there's no big debris in between the strut and that. I won't cause any paint erosion and rust if we don't have to. I just take an old grease rag and wipe the surface off. Same on top of the struts. That's where the puck's going to go. And nothing but mere dust on this thing. I don't think it's ever seen off-road. But it has, it's been cleaned up. Alright, so we got a puck. Puck goes on top of the strut. Alright, I'm just going to walk the threads down a little bit. Make sure it's evened up. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to take a peek. Make sure when I put this thing back in, I'm going to be able to bolt it in. That's not how it was originally, so I'm going to spin it around. Well, probably wouldn't matter if I flip it around, but I like to take it out, put it back in the way it came and went. Well, shit, I don't know if that matters. You don't have to go in that way. I don't think it matters. As long as your bolt holes line up, right? I don't see any. Yeah, that's fine. And you can use your appropriate torque wrench and torque it to spec. I'm gonna have to loosen them. Just give me a oil pen and mark my control arms so they'll go back right where they were. Sharpie Main Street pen, just make us a couple marks. That way we know where the alignments are. We'll loosen that bad boy up. No sense in fighting. I might as well do the other side while I'm down here. All right. 22, deuce. It's almost there. Son of a bitch. That's a tough one. All right. So I was able to just loosen that back nut and get it, but it was tough still. I don't know if it'll work on the other side. I may have to take that skid plate down and loosen that front nut just to allow me just a little more flex out of that control arm. I mean, if I took them totally loose, it'd probably just flop down. That's probably what I should have done. But I'm stubborn. Sometimes I'm stubborn. Okay, so if you're doing this job, don't be a stubborn ass like me and just drop that skid plate, loosen those lower control arm bolts, because it makes things a hell of a lot easier. I don't know why I was being so stubborn. I was being lazy maybe. So look, I just cracked them loose, and now I can play with it as much as I want and get my bolts started. And that's what we're going to do now. Get them all started before I tighten anything up. All right, I got 3 tops started. Let me tell you, that makes life a lot easier. Go ahead and loosen those lower control arms. I don't know what I was thinking. All right, so what I've done to get the lower control arm to come up, so I get the 2 ball joint brace or bracket bolts back in. I was having trouble doing it by myself and pressing it all down and getting the bolt started. I was having like a gap like that. I couldn't come close. So I took a ratchet strap, just put my screw jack up under it, took a ratchet strap and just sucked it all down to it. I didn't want to screw up too much on the ratchet, on the screw jack. I was scared I'd lift the truck up off the lift. So I've got a lot of pressure on it now. I got the bolts started. I'm going to tighten them up and get the screw jack out from under it. Go ahead and do the other side, and I won't film the other side because it's too hard. The camera won't fit over there well. I've got a GoPro, but for some reason I can't import my videos from it right now. I hadn't had time to figure that out, so I'm gonna just show this side and a few more minutes of this side, and then we'll do the blocks in the back for the leaf spring lift. Ooh, like a whole box of ice. I'm gonna start these by hand. I'm gonna make sure I hit them with the air. It's not, they're started right. You know, cross thread on them. Alright, so we got the ball joint bolts back up. Now I'm going to tighten up the little control arms, and I'll hit the upper strut bolts. I guess I'll go ahead and put the tie rod in on this side. I'm gonna leave the sway bar end link out until I get the other side done, and then I'll come back and tighten all that up, and I'll double check everything, and then we'll move to the back. Gotta put my mark back for my control arm. This one didn't move. On that side anyway. I think. Who's that side didn't move? Man. Concrete's freezing. I know you guys from up north are probably like, get over it. It's not even cold. 37 is not cold. Well, it is to me. Grab me a longer wrench to tighten up those bolts. Make sure I got a good cinch down on them. And tighten this back up. same with that. Spin, Captain. Gotta stop her on it. I'm gonna leave that out. I'm gonna leave that tie right out till I do the other side because it allows me to get the sway bar down just a little bit more, which helps me get the strut out. So I need that on the other side because it connects to the other side. So we're gonna leave that down and I'll come back and button this up last. So tight here, tight here. Tight the ball joint, tight the bottom of the strut, tight the control arms, and the marks are lined up. So now I'm going to go do the other side, which I'm not going to film. It's just not enough room on that side to film it. It's just the same. So I'm going to carry you over there and we're going to recap this. It's definitely something you could do at home. I mean, that's how I used to do everything, sitting on the carport floor, no garage at all, out with the elements, pulled transmissions, engines, the suspension work, brakes, CV axles, I mean, air conditioning repairs, did everything, did all kinds of side work. Out of my mom's carport when I was a young man, didn't have a home of my own. That's how I got my start. Then I went to work for dealerships and then I opened my own shop. 13 years dealers, 15 years owning my own shop. Many years before that tinkering around. Started at about in 10. I would say 10 would be a safe age, probably earlier than that, turning wrenches on bicycles and crap, you know, when I was like 7, 8 years old. Didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing it. But let's see. All right, let me turn the lamp on here. So you got 3 bolts on top of the strut. So if you're going to come in to do this job from scratch, you know, you come in and say, all right, the stock one's still in it. Unbolt the 3 bolts on top of the strut. Come in and unbolt the bottom one, the bottom nut. Pull that, knock that bolt through. And then loosen your control arm, make a mark on it so it doesn't go. See, I made a mark right there. Frickin' camera focus. Made a mark here and here, so I didn't lose my alignments, and did it there as well. So loosen those up. It allows the control arm to drop down. Take the sway bar in link, which connects from here to here, which is this guy. Goes in between the sway bar and the top of the spindle. Take that out and let your sway bar come down. Take the tie rod end out of the spindle. Let your steering come down. Let the sway bar come down a little bit more. Gets it loose and you're able to yank this whole thing out. Put your puck on top. Tighten it all up. Stick it back in. Ratchet strap it together so you can get the bottom bolts in. And you will need a toe adjustment when this is done. on the alignment rack, which I have. This is a very, very messy shop. I had a 7,000 square foot shop that I rented before I had bought this house with this little shop. This is 1,800 square feet, I believe, something like that, maybe less. And I got an alignment rack. It's old, but it still works. And I got a 2-post and, you know, my hand tools and stuff. That's it. Probably come back in. We may even do a 2-part on this.